Thanks to America Cares, a nonprofit organization, emergency shipment of medical supplies that valued over 10.2 million USD was sent into Haiti, since the Haitians aren't actually able to get out. Safety protocols was also an adversity when it came to the citizens knowing what to do. Since there are more injuries due to lack of knowledge when it came to earthquakes, the drive/demand in healthcare and aid is higher. Moving on to the environmental, secondary, and primary effects. Since tropical depression or tropical cyclone occurred closely after the earthquake, which is a thunderstorm caused by air moving and rising to a lower pressured area, it resulted in severe damage to shelters, which is a short-term aspect. Similar to the earthquake in Haiti that happened in 2010, this earthquake also resulted in fish and debris in the oceans breaking to the surface. This in itself is a problem because Haiti's waters are already carrying extensive amounts of pollution prior to the earthquake, therefore making it a strenuous task to get rid of it and maintain the cleanliness, which is a short-term impact. A primary and long-term aspect would be collapsing of buildings leading to broken gas pipes that can cause fire to start. The fires may potentially spread to settlements and even forests across the land with a likelihood of not recovering, meaning the loss of landmarks and infrastructure. Implement more and stricter laws for littering, better sewage and waste systems, as well as publicly educating how to dispose of certain materials properly, with all of it to minimize the mess when floods do occur.
Since the earthquake in Haiti happened, there has been a lot of deaths and injuries, as you see on the slide. Since many roads got damaged and buildings collapsed, it is hard for people to communicate and transport aid to other people. Over 137,000 families have been affected by the earthquake. UNICEF estimates that there are 1.2 million people, including 540,000 children, affected by the 7.2 magnitude earthquake. The reason for this is because many children don't have access to shelter, food, and health care. Around 234,000 people live within 9 miles, 15 kilometers off the earthquake's epicenter. 45% of the population will also suffer from high levels of acute food insecurity. Over 130,000 houses have been destroyed due to the earthquake and tropical storm. This has caused many children, especially girls, to be orphaned. A landslide also occurred next to the major highway. So the further steps with social is you need education, how to do first aid, better infrastructure and buildings, and better preparation for earthquakes.
Short-term impacts of the earthquake in Haiti. The first point to note is that the GDP per capita is $1,149.5, and the Human Development Index ranking is 175 out of 180 countries. The second point is reviving the economy itself is a big challenge because you have a 9.6% loss in GDP, and when you look at the actual amount, it's $1.6 billion. Third is it's tough to attract foreign investment because of the current security situation, such as political violence, gang violence. The fourth point is the government will not will spend most of the money in infrastructure, and it will have less money to spend on law and order and getting aid for citizens. So the unemployment rate is already 60%. The poor investment in socioeconomic infrastructure, such as education and healthcare, will cost the economy because ill and unskilled citizens cannot help in economic development. Looking at the short-term impacts, firstly, small businesses and shops have been collapsed because the buildings are destroyed. Some need to pay back their loans, so they don't have enough money to rebuild their shops. Third is that they have a shortage of essential resources, such as electricity. The second point is that the country's GDP dropped by 3.3%. In addition, the Haitian gourde depreciated by 50%, and the inflation rate remains about 10%. So when you look at this graph, you see a significant devaluation in the value of HTG when you compare it to USD. Now, looking at the growing power of gangs, one of the famous economists says that gang activity is a poison for economy. That means if we don't restore law and order, then we won't have economic growth. Then we can see here the buildings are destroyed, which shows that how poor quality is the infrastructure, and we also get to see the shortage of the essential resources such as food. Now, some further steps to mitigate will be firstly to improve the legal system by imposing heavy punishments on corruption. Second would be to improve the security situation to create business-friendly environment to attract more foreign direct investment. Now, more foreign direct investment will mean more economic growth, which will mean more employment. So these are some steps to keep in mind going forward. So thank you for listening.